You know that feeling when you do exactly what you were told, but you're still losing the game? You diligently put 10% of your paycheck into your 401k. You cut back on eating out. You skipped the vacation. You did the responsible thing. Yet, when you look at your retirement account, it feels like you're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. That's because you are. The financial advice we blindly accepted from the 1990s is completely broken for today's economy. While you were trying to outsave rising costs, a toxic combination of shadow inflation and hidden institutional fees is quietly draining your future wealth. But here is the truth that Wall Street hopes you never figure out. You aren't failing because you lack discipline. You are losing because your brain and your retirement account are mathematically programmed to fail in the modern economic environment. Let me show you how to fix it. For decades, financial gurus have screamed at you to just stop buying lattes and budget better. They make you feel guilty for spending money today while demanding you lock it away for 40 years. But let's look at the actual science. Researchers at Stanford University have extensively studied a psychological phenomenon called temporal discounting. In simple terms, human beings are evolutionarily hardwired to prioritize immediate survival over future rewards. Millions of years of evolution trained our brains to consume resources right now because tomorrow was never guaranteed. When a financial advisor tells you to ignore the crushing cost of groceries today to fund a 401k for the year 2055, they are literally asking you to fight your own DNA. Add to this the scarcity mindset. When you are stressed about current bills or the rising cost of living, your brain's cognitive bandwidth physically shrinks. You are operating in a physiological survival mode. You simply don't have the mental energy to optimize your high-yield savings accounts or audit your investment portfolio.
The traditional financial system knows this. It relies on your cognitive fatigue. It thrives when you just set it and forget it, because that's exactly when the hidden wealth transfer begins. You aren't broke because you lack willpower. You are exhausted because you are playing a complex, modern financial game using a brain built for the Paleolithic era. By the way, if you want to dive deeper into how this specifically traps you in credit card cycles, check out our video on the psychology of debt popping up on the screen right now. But for your retirement, this evolutionary mismatch is costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here is the core breakdown of exactly how the system takes your money and the simple math to stop it. To stop the bleeding, we have to look at the 3 invisible traps draining the American middle class. These aren't just mistakes, they are engineered blind spots. Let's start with what happens when you get a new job. HR hands you a stack of paperwork, you check a box to contribute to your company's 401k, and by default, your money gets dumped into a target date fund. You pat yourself on the back for being responsible, and then you never look at the expense ratio again. Why do we do this? Behavioral economists at the University of Chicago call this the status quo bias mixed with cognitive overload. The financial industry deliberately uses confusing jargon to exhaust your brain, because your brain naturally craves cognitive ease. When faced with overwhelming choices, it defaults to the easiest path, doing nothing. You get a tiny hit of dopamine for simply participating, while completely ignoring the underlying mechanics. But this cognitive laziness comes with a devastating price tag. Let's look at the power of compound interest working against you. If you invest $500 a month for 30 years at a 7% return, you should end up with roughly $600,000. However, those default target date funds and actively managed mutual funds often carry hidden fees, an expense ratio hovering around 1.5%. That tiny 1.5% fee doesn't just reduce your return, it compounds. Over 3 decades, that small fee consumes nearly 30% of your total potential wealth. You are legally handing over $150,000 of your hard-earned money to pay for Wall Street yachts, simply because you didn't check a different box. Willpower won't fix this. Environment design will. You must log into your account today and audit your expense ratios. The solution is moving your allocations into low-cost index funds, like an S&P 500 tracker, which typically charge a microscopic 0.04% fee. you suffer 15 minutes of administrative friction today to automate the. This leads directly into the second invisible trap, the illusion that cash is a safe haven. Terrified of a looming recession, you might stop investing entirely. You hoard your savings in a traditional checking account at a big-name bank, watching the balance slowly grow. You feel financially secure because the number isn't going down. This behavior is driven by a powerful survival mechanism called loss aversion. Neurologically, the pain of losing $1,000 in the stock market feels twice as intense as the joy of gaining $1,000. To protect ourselves from emotional pain, our brains seek the illusion of safety. Seeing raw cash in a bank account provides a false dopamine safety net, tricking you into thinking you are surviving the economic storm. But in reality, you are mathematically guaranteeing a loss. The government might report inflation at 3 or 4%, but shadow inflation, the actual rising cost of housing, healthcare, and groceries in major cities, often runs much higher. If you leave $50,000 in a standard checking account earning 0.01% and real inflation is just 5%, your purchasing power is being violently erased. In just 10 years, the mathematical reality is that your $50,000 will only buy what $30,000 buys today. Cash is not a safe haven, it is a melting ice cube. To survive this, you must build a friction-free firewall. Automatically route your emergency reserves into high-yield savings accounts or short-term treasury bills. By automating the transfer to an account yielding 4 or 5%, you neutralize base inflation without triggering your brain's fear of stock market volatility. The third and perhaps most dangerous trap is the tax-deferred time bomb. You aggressively maximize your traditional 401k contributions because you are obsessed with getting the immediate tax deduction right now. You celebrate lowering your tax bill this year, ignoring what happens when you finally retire. Science calls this hyperbolic discounting. We are heavily biased toward immediate, guaranteed rewards. The instant gratification of a tax break today completely blinds us to a massive abstract tax penalty 30 years in the future. We treat the tax break as free money, fulfilling our brain's desire for immediate survival resources. Yet here is the most dangerous math equation in the American retirement system. Let's say over your career, you put $100,000 into a traditional 401k. That is your seed. Through decades of compound growth, it blossoms into a $1 million harvest. Because you took the tax break up front, the IRS is waiting for you. You don't pay taxes on the $100,000 seed, you pay taxes on the $1 million harvest, at whatever the income tax rates happen to be decades from now. With the national debt exploding, do you really think tax rates will be lower in the future? To fix this, you have to bypass the urge for instant gratification. The strategy is to redirect a portion of your wealth into a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. Yes, you pay taxes on the seed today, but by paying taxes on the small amount now, you legally shield the massive compounded harvest from the government forever. You automate the tax payment today to build an unbreakable tax-free fortress for your future self. Here's the part nobody tells you about building wealth in America. You have been sold a lie that financial success requires superhuman discipline, endless sacrifice, and a perfectly optimized spreadsheet. But if you look closely at the ultra-wealthy, you will notice something fascinating. They don't rely on willpower. Willpower is a depleting resource. The more decisions you make in a day about your job, your family, your health, the less willpower you have left to manage your money. The wealthy understand that human beings are fundamentally flawed, emotional creatures. So they don't try to outsmart their own psychology, they bypass it completely. They win because they build automated systems of protection. They design environments where the default action is wealth creation, and making a bad financial decision actually requires effort. When you automate your investments into low-cost index funds, when you automatically route cash into high-yield savings accounts, and when you lock in your future tax rates with a Roth IRA, you are removing yourself from the equation. You are no longer relying on your tired, stressed-out brain to make the right choice at the end of a long week. You are building an invisible fortress around your money. True financial freedom isn't about having the strongest willpower in the room, it's about building a system so robust that you don't need willpower at all. If you have ever felt overwhelmed looking at your retirement accounts, if you've ever felt like you're drowning in a system that is rigged against you, I need you to hear this loud and clear. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're just human. You have been playing a complex modern economic game using a brain that was built for survival in the wilderness. But now that you see the hidden mechanics of shadow inflation, compound fees, and psychological traps, you have the power to change your default settings. Take back control today. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the exact age you started worrying about retirement? Let's get real in the comments below. And if you realize today that your bank account is secretly losing money, you need to understand exactly how the banks are profiting off your cash. Click the video on your screen right now, where we expose the dark psychology of the modern banking system. I'll see you over there.